My name's Jerry Miller and I'm an alcoholic. Let's get one thing straight. I'm not from Long Beach. I don't know what the rumor was, but I'm not from Long Beach. I'm from Los Angeles, California, but I'm grateful to be here tonight. First and foremost, I want to thank God for my life, y'all, in the program Alcoholics Anonymous, for helping me find a God in my own conception, and for that I'm eternally grateful through that process outlined in the big book. I believe in the big book and I believe in the steps because, one thing I was clear about when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous is the God I knew just wasn't helping out anymore, and he had kicked me and my kids to the curb, and I just, and all I wanted to do was just be a good dad. Just wanted to make it home with that paycheck on Fridays, which I wasn't able to do. And let me clear the air too about Jeremy. I want to thank Jeremy and Logan for finally picking me up. And apparently our wires got a little crossed because, I texted him when I landed. I'm like, hey, Jeremy, we just landed. He called me. I was like, congratulations, and I'm like, figure it out, dude. I thought he was supposed to come pick me up, but I guess I got my wires crossed, so I ended up catching the shuttle to the hotel. But anyway, he came and picked me up for the food. And, I'd like to welcome you. I see some hands go up for people under 30. I'd like to welcome you to Alcoholics Anonymous and tell you that you just tapped into a power much greater than yourself that can solve all the problems in your life. And all you got to do is stay. And what I found out for me is I just needed that WWA, that well-whooped ass, before I could, before I could throw these hands up and surrender and say, no mas, I can't go no more, and that's what it took for me, and if you be older than myself, from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you. Thank you for saving the seat for an alcoholic like Jerry, because you knew I was coming and you knew I wasn't going to be any place else to go. What you see standing in front of you tonight is mercy and grace, period. I got a life beyond my wildest dreams today, and I didn't do anything to earn it, and I know I didn't deserve it, but I got a God in my life who believes I do, and that's why I get to live it. So when I get the call, I'm always I'm come running, and I got a sobriety date of December the 2nd of 1999, and for that I'm eternally grateful. That's that, yep. That's 8,893 days ago today, you know what I mean? Because I keep the day count in front of me because I don't want to get caught up in them years, you know what I mean? Because all I get here is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. And I'm real clear on that today, you know what I mean? So I don't count the years, I count the days, because that's all I get, that next 24. If I wake up, I thank God for waking me up with the gift of life and the gift of sobriety. And I just ask him, sometimes it's just this simple. Please help me be a little bit more like you, a little less like me. Please, today. And thank God for Art Burrs, because that's who sponsors me. I thank God for Bless, because that's who sponsors Art. And I thank God for Jerome S., because that's who sponsors Bless. And that's my lineage here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I consider Alcoholics Anonymous my family. You know what I mean? Because I had nowhere else to go when I got here. All the tough guy shit was gone. You know what I mean? My egg was cracked. It was nothing left for me to do. But I pick up the spiritual toolkit that you guys talked about, when I landed on that doorstep, December the 2nd, 1999, more dead than alive. And that wasn't my introduction to Alcoholics Anonymous. I got introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous January of 1996. But there would be three, almost 4 years of that incomprehensible demoralization that I would need to live, before I would surrender, And I didn't know how to surrender, man. I was born and raised in Hartford, Connecticut. They didn't teach me surrender in Hartford, Connecticut, you know what I mean? That's not what we taught, I had a pretty stable childhood. My parents only had 2 addresses, 132 Enfield Street and 112 Love Lane. Moved over there when I was 9. That was the only addresses my parents had, and I remember moving on Love Lane, I was 9 years old. And by this time, I'm liking girls, right? And I see this girl. I'm only on the block 2 days, and I tell her what a nice figure she has. She didn't appreciate it. She said, I'm getting my cousin to kick your ass. I said, well, get your cousin. I ain't scared until I seen him, right? She went and got her cousin, right? And it was this dude, and he was talking at me. He came in at me, and I'm staring at him, right? And he's like, stop staring at me, but I couldn't help it, right? Because first time I ever seen one, it was an albino black dude, right? And he had freckles and shit, and he had red hair, right? And he couldn't have been our age. He had muscles everywhere with a little wife beater. Y'all call them wife beaters. We call them tank tops. You know what I'm saying? With a little tank top on, you know what I mean? And he said when he come back from the store, you know what I'm saying, for his auntie, he going to kick my ass. And my father picked up on that action. He called me in the house, and he gave me a pep talk. He said, listen, son, guys like that going to keep coming back. unless you protect yourself or do something to him. I said, what do you think I ought to do, Dad? He said, well, you see them two boys out there you was talking to? They was the twins, Rodney and Ron. I said, yeah. He said, well, get your baseball bat, get your glove, and get your ball. And go ask those guys, do they want to play? And if that guy comes back, drop the ball, drop the glove, and I want you to wear his ass out with that baseball bat. I looked at my dad. I like, you think I can do it? He said, yeah, you can do it, son. You know what I mean? I didn't feel too confident, though, because I had got to look at Red. You know what I'm saying? And then sure enough, Red came back. He dropped his groceries off. He came out the house, and I swear he made a beeline toward me, right? And I'm like, whew, whew. I can feel my heart beating fast, and it looked like steam was coming out his ears, right? And I'm like, okay, I remember what Dad said. As soon as he got close enough, I dropped that ball, I dropped the glove, and I took my best swing with my Louisville slugger, right? Boom, got him. Didn't faze him. He took the bat and he commenced to whooping my behind, right? And now I can hear my mother in the background like, oh no, not my son, not my baby. I'm like, oh, Red ass in trouble now, right? Because here come my mama, right? And I can see her coming through the punches. And then all of a sudden I see this big old arm grabber, and it was my dad. He grabbed her and said, fair fight. He need to figure it out. And I'm thinking to myself, that's some BS, Dad, because this was your idea anyway. You know what I'm saying? And I laid there, man, and took that behind whooping, man, until Red got tired. And then when he got tired, he got up. He actually helped me up. He dusted me off and said, kid, you took that pretty good. And I went back across the street, and I looked at my dad, and I was like, and that didn't go too well, Dad. My father said, no, son, you did good. You hung in there. I didn't hang in there. I couldn't get up. You know what I'm saying? But he said I hung in there, and as long as I hang in there, it'll always get better. You know what I'm saying? And I took that all the way through my life, man. You know, and yeah, man, I grew up on Love Lane. Half the street was houses. The other half was a park. Right next to my house was a baseball diamond, a basketball court, and a field. We used to play sandlot football, right? And we were crazy kids, right? I mean, when we didn't have nothing to play, we made up games, right? So we didn't have enough for two teams. We made this game called cremation. Cremation was, we just throw the ball up, whoever gets it, get creamed, right, by everybody. You know what I mean? And I just love my childhood, I did, but I'm also ACA. I'm an adult child loving alcoholic, you know what I mean? And there was some trauma in my childhood, and it really was. And, you know, and I remember one day my baby sister asked me for something to eat, and I went back in my mom's bedroom to see if she had any money left. And I remember standing on the side of her bed. You know, she was in her cup. She wasn't lovely at all. You know, and I remember saying to myself, if I ever have kids, I'd never treat them like this. Never say never, you know. But like I said, man, I had a neighborhood full of kids. We used to play all the time. And I remember when my drinking was fun, right? I remember being 15. Hartford Civic Center just got built. They was giving away free tickets, right? Free tickets. And we got a handful of tickets to the Parliament Funkadelic concert. Now, this is 1975, so I know some of you youngsters ain't gonna know what I'm talking about when I talk about the outfits we used to wear in the mid-70s. You know what I'm saying? They were made out of polyester, right? So you could not afford to have a seed pop because it'll kill a whole outfit, right? If you ever want to see a bunch of grown people run, let a seed pop in a joint, right? Everybody gonna be running for their life, you know what I mean? Because they ain't trying to kill their outfit. So anyway, you had to clean your weed. Take out the seeds, take out the stems, crush it up, roll it up nice. My job was to go around to all my friends' house, steal as much liquor as I could and be undetected. We used to carry these little Boulder bags. I had some Old Granddad in there. I had some Cuddy Shark, Crown Royal, you know what I'm saying? Had some White Label, anything I can get my hands on. But we was ready to go, right? We head out to the Parliament Funkadelic concert, you know what I mean? And we standing on the chairs, we smoking weed, we drinking this suicide that was horribly tasting, but it got us there, right? And I remember the lights going off, and all of a sudden you see this little spaceship come across the stage. You know, I'm 15, right? And this is getting exciting. I can feel the momentum building, right? And it lands, and all of a sudden, the lights go out, a giant explosion happened, and the big old mothership came down, right? This dude came out the mothership with a white fur coat on and a white fur hat, talking about some, tear the roof off the mother, tear the roof off the mother. And the place just exploded, right? And I remember thinking like, oh my God, I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? Because it was a lot of fun. Nobody got shot, nobody got stabbed. Everybody made it home nice and safe. Wasn't no cars getting crashed, but I suffered from a progressive disease, like the book talks about. By the time I was in the 11th grade, I was a high school dropout. You know what I mean? And I was that kid with all the potential, and everybody wanted to know what happened to him. I took the state title in indoor track 2 years in a row. But when life got bad, it got bad, and I didn't know what to do. Ended up in the military for 8 years. And for 7 years, I was a good little soldier. But then my disease caught up with me again. My drinking turned into, I had the trap house on base, you know what I mean? And I burned up that military career in like 7 months, and next thing I know, I'm back on the streets. And I'm back home in Hartford, Connecticut. And one thing led to another. I ended up leaving there because me and my sister was at odds and it put my mother's life in danger. So I ended up leaving the East Coast and coming out to California. Now, by this time, my disease had progressed to I like my alcohol on the rocks, right? And I told you I was an alcoholic, but I smoked a lot of crack and I shot a lot of dope just to figure that out. You know what I mean? And I get out to California, and now I like my alcohol on the rocks. And that got so bad so quick that all of a sudden I end up as a single parent, right? But now I'm on this new drinking career that just changed me forever. Me and my kids would go on this 9-year mission, you know what I mean? And it got bad, and it got bad quick. We were starting to get evicted about every 6 months because that's the longest I can hold on to a place. And I got these kids in tow, right? 3 of them. One of them was from another woman who he would only come out in the summer. But then I would send them back home, and I would get them back again next summer. And life got real, real bad, man. It was hard to catch up with me when we was moving every 6 months. And then drinking got to the point where, everybody knew who I was. So by December 23rd of 1995, my oldest son hadn't been out in like 4 years, and there's a knock on the door. I'm living in Bellflower, California. And it's the aunties from my ex-in-laws, right? And what they did was they had brought my kids some Christmas toys this year because they got tired of me crying and my kids looking sad on birthdays, Easter, Christmas, and they had brought my kids some toys. But they asked me a question, and it was pretty insulting, but it was true. They asked me, what would it take for me not to sell these toys? Because they had to go back east. And I said, well, as insulted as I was, I said, well, how about some Seagram 7 and a pack of Newports, and I'd be good, And they said, is that all? I said, absolutely. They left, they went to the store, they came back with a half a gallon of Seagram 7, a big old bottle of 7-Up, and 3 packs of Newports. And I'm thinking, man, this is going to be the best Christmas my kids had in a long time. You know what I mean? Because now they got Christmas toys, because the tree was raggedy as all get out, right? Half the arms was missing, but there was enough arms to hold some lights, you know what I mean? And I had a brown towel around the bottom, a bath towel, not the kind of towel that goes under the Christmas tree, And I had a big wood floor model console TV, you know what I mean? It didn't work, it was just furniture. What worked was the 12-inch black and white on top with the coat hanger in it, you know what I'm saying? And that's the only reason I had that 12-inch black and white, when I drink with my alcohol on the rocks. It's Crazy Jerry's garage sale, everything must go, you know what I'm saying? And I just couldn't sell this one in those 2 o'clock in the morning garage sales, And in the kitchen, we had top ramen. It was a 99-cent pack of hot dogs and a bag of potatoes. So I'm thinking this is going to be the best Christmas my kids had in a long time, and it was. But by 2 o'clock in the morning, my head said, well, let me just take a look and see what kind of toys they got. One was electric racetrack, train track, you know what I'm saying? My daughter got some stuff, and I'm thinking that they automatically turn into coupons. See, what I didn't realize is I suffer from an obsession of the mind, right, at this particular point in my disease. 'Cause I don't even know what Alcoholics Anonymous is. And I have no idea that when I'm not drinking, I'm only thinking about drinking or how I can drink. You know what I mean? And I don't realize that when I put something in my body, I set off that thing called the phenomenon of craving that the book talks about in the doctor's opinion, that no matter how great necessity the wish, I cannot stop, even if I wanted to. So 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm peeking, I'm telling myself I'm just seeing what they got. Next thing I know, I'm loading them toys up in the car. My 5-year-old wakes up, right? Because, see, by this time in my drinking career, he would have to lay across me in order for him to stay asleep all night. Why? Because he often wakes up home alone. And that's not the way I wanted to treat my kids. That's not. I knew what my job was as a father, was to provide, protect, and to love, and to keep the boogeyman out the house. But I couldn't protect him from me, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. So he's holding on to my leg, asking me where I'm going, and I'm telling him I'm going to be right back. And he starts to cry, and I'm telling him to man up. He's 5 years old. Who tells a 5-year-old to man up? Somebody suffering from the phenomenon of craving. But I couldn't shake him this night. So I put him in the front seat of that Cutlass, man, and I drive from Bellflower, California, down to Greenleaf and Long Beach Boulevard. Just in case you don't know where that is, that's smack dab in the middle of Compton, California. And that's where I go to get them rocks for my alcohol in the middle of the night. You know, and I pull up in the alley, and it's kind of foggy, right? But I see a couple of the homies coming. I'm thinking, cool, everything gonna be good, because I ain't really want to leave him in the car by himself tonight. You know what I'm saying? By himself out here in the alley. But when they got up to my side of the car, they wasn't serving rocks, they were serving lead, and they both pulled out pistols, and they opened fire on the car. I screamed, I ducked, I pushed my son to the floor, and I stepped on the gas. All that in about 2 seconds. I'm trying to get out this alley, right? And I'm trying to check myself from holes, because I got to be hit, because all I'm looking at is muzzle flash, right? And I'm calling to my son, and he not responding. So I'm like, oh shit, if I'm not hit, he must be. So when I get to the street, I'm looking for the police, and I can't find no police. I'm calling to my son again. He's not moving, and he's not responding. And so now I'm starting to panic, because I'm thinking, how am I going to explain to his grandmother that I got him killed trying to sell his Christmas toys for one more? You know, and I'm coming unglued, and I'm praying to this God who I'm pretty sure done kicked me to the curb now after what I just did, you know, and he wasn't responding, man, and I drove with that kid on the floor of that car all the way back to that apartment in Bellflower. And when I got to that apartment, man, I put that thing in park, and I didn't want to look, but I had to. My face was all swollen from the glass that splattered in my face, you know what I mean, but there wasn't no bullet holes, you know, and I didn't want to look, but I had to. When I walked around that car, everything was in slow motion. You know, when I opened that door, he was still in the ball. And when I picked him up, his eyes was wide open. He was just in shock from all the gunplay. And I held that kid tight to my chest, and I cried, and I blew snot, and I thank God for sparing his life, and that I'd never do that again. And I would love to tell you that that was enough for me to get sober. That was December 23rd, 1995. If you was paying attention, I didn't get sober till December 2nd, 1999. There would be more of that incomprehensible demoralization that I needed to live before I surrendered. See, one thing I knew about that night, at the end of that night, is I knew I was in trouble, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to ask for help, because the way I was raised is what happens in this house stays in this house. You know what I mean? And it explains me all right there on page 24. It says, the reason for yet obscure, the alcoholic like me has lost the power of choice in drink. You know what I mean? I can't bring into consciousness with sufficient force the pain and suffering in the memory of a week or a month ago. I'm without defense against that first one. But I don't know none of that, because I ain't got here yet, right? I have not got here yet, you know, and I drank heavy that night, man. I was tossing up that Seagram 7, and I was shaking because of what just had happened. By January of 1996, I'm fumbling through the yellow pages, and I don't even know what I was looking for, but I was looking for help. And I came across a 1-800 number for Alcoholics Anonymous. And I called the number, and I told this guy what was going on a little bit in my life. And he said, hey, can you make it to a meeting? I said, whatever that is, yeah. He gave me the address. I went to my very first meeting. It was at Yukon High School in Torrance, California. And I walked off in that room, and, you know, thank y'all for the hospitality tonight. It was just like that, man. People were reaching their hands out to me. They was hugging. Their clothes was clean. They were stringing whole sentences together. They smelled good. You know what I'm saying? But all of a sudden, they was cursing and using God's name in the same sentence, right? And I'm like, uh-oh. They're going to hell. You know what I mean? My back pockets is touching. I don't know which way is up, and I still got an opinion. You feel me? And then y'all held hands at the end of the meeting, and y'all chanted, y'all said this thing. I was like, it's the Jim Jones effect. I just wasn't going to hang around for the purple Kool-Aid, man. And I didn't hear much that night, you know what I mean? Because I wasn't finished. I wasn't surrendered. So from that point, though, to December 2nd, 1999, I would do what you call the AA two-step. I do all the hokey pokey. I do 1 foot in, I did 1 foot out, you know, do the hokey pokey, and you sing it all about it, whatever that song is, you know. But we got this motto at my home group, which is the Never Too Early Big Book Workshop, is come all the way in and sit all the way down. So if you be new, I beg you to just come all the way in and sit all the way down. Because it might don't sound like it, but you're right where you need to be. if you got a problem with alcohol, you're right where you need to be, you know. And so I would go in, I've been in all kind of programs, Salvation Army, Grandview, Sober Livings, you name it, I done been there, you know what I mean? I would drink my way out of one city, land up in another one, you know. And the last city I drank my way into was the 502 Club at Covina, California. Now, mind you, when I landed in Covina, I just I wanted somewhere to start off fresh. I just wanted to go somewhere and say I'm a newcomer, right? Because I've been around here, you know what I mean? And see, what my sponsor would always tell me is being in AA and being around AA, two different locations. So I had been around AA. I did all the 12-step dances. I never missed a 12-step barbecue. Y'all had some real 12-step good food down there tonight. You know what I mean? I had 12-step commitments, a lot of literature. I like the literature commitments. You know what I mean? And but I had done everything but the 12 steps. So when it came time for me to drink, there was no power between me, the thought, and the action. You know, Herbert Spencer contributed to the big book Alcoholics Anonymous, right? He wrote The Spiritual Experience. But he also wrote some quotes. And one of the quotes he wrote that I keep in my back pocket is this: the greatest crime one could commit is to steal from yourself and not know that something is missing. So if you're in the 12-step fellowship and you're not doing the 12 steps, you're only stealing from yourself and you don't know what's missing. We know what's missing because we're on the other side of it. You know, happy, joyous, and free most of the time if we stay in the process, you know. But anyway, my last run ended up, I was telling them earlier, my last run ended up at State Line. I wasn't at State Line, I just ran into State Line, you know what I mean? I had been out all night, I stole my friend's car. I was in charge of feeding all the kids. You know, parents gave me the money because I do that. I build up your trust. You know, I'm likable. You know what I mean? And then I take a drink and I turn into this other guy. You know what I mean? And I walked into the hotel that morning. I'd been out all night. And there was a drink by the elevator with a cigarette butt in it. I pulled out the cigarette butt. I took a swig. I was thirsty. I've been working all night long. You know, because getting loaded is a lot of work. You know what I'm saying? It's a big job. And there are all these people still with these Roundup badges on. You know what I mean? And I was like, State Line Roundup badges on. I'm like, man, if God ain't trying to talk to me, I don't know what is. So I ended up back in Covina. I had been up for 7 days. And these things are flying around the room. And I'm trying to cut them with this 007 knife, right? And I'm like, Jerry, these things that's flying around the room apparently are knife proof. You know what I mean? And I'm sitting there and I'm feeling sorry for myself. And I'm rocking and I'm just going through it, man. And I'm just like, God, why me? And I swear the voice was really, really loud. It says, why not you? I gave you everything you needed to succeed in this alcoholism. And I rocked all night, y'all. I rocked all night until daylight. When daylight came, the only thing I could come up with was tell somebody the truth. So I called this guy named Earl Murphy. He took my call that morning, y'all, and he was just happy to hear from me. He wouldn't even let me get a word in. I said, hold on, let me tell you what's going on. Like, I got like 13 families after me because I done stole all their money and spent it up on drugs and alcohol. I done sold my car to pick apart with 3 literature commitments in the trunk. I'm about to get evicted again. You know what I'm saying? I said, Errol is burnt all the way down to the ground. And he said, is that it? I said, yeah. He said, Jerry, you hadn't broken any records. I said, really? He said, no, you haven't broken any records. He said, but man, look, I just want you to come back to the rooms. And at the 502 Club in Covina, it's mandatory that you raise your hand for the first 29 days. And on the 30th day, you don't have to raise your hand anymore. And he said, I just want you to come back. And something touched me in the heart. I said, okay. He said, but what are you willing to do different this time? I said, whatever it is you tell me to do. You know, Alcoholics has an amazing way of meeting you right where you at whenever you surrendered, you know. And he sent me up with this guy named Carl Morris, and I'm doing this intake interview with Carl. And I'm sitting across this Icelandic-looking dude, you know what I'm saying? He young, he's spry, he happy as all get out. I'm in the dumps. And he asked me what was my drug of choice, and I told him it was crack cocaine. He looked at me and said, you don't have any money to move in, now do you? I said, no, I don't. I ain't got a penny to my name. And then I felt happy and defeated all in the same time because he said, well, because I thought he wasn't going to let me move in. And he said, but since you're Earl, baby, I'm going to let you move in on the one condition. I said, what's that? He said that you sit there until I find you a bed. Now, I had been in a bunch of sober livings before, and I had no idea this was going to be my last one. And I sat there rocking as people coming in and out of that office, living their lives, doing that sobriety thing. And a couple hours went by. He wrote an address on a piece of paper. He told me to go here, 2 blocks that way, 1 block that way. Now I walk in, it's broad daylight, and I'm pretty beat up. You know what I mean? And I get to this house, a big, beautiful, green Victorian-looking house, right? And I knock on the door. Now I don't know if you guys ever remember this show called In Living Color. The Wayans had. Well, Jim Carrey had a character on it called Fire Marshal Bill, right? Swear to God, that's who answered the door, right? It was a mini version of Fire Marshal Bill, right? And he was talking real fast. I've been expecting you. You know what I'm saying? His teeth was moving at one speed. His lips was moving at another, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm thinking I just had one drink too many. I've been up for a few days. You know what I'm saying? So, but come to find out, his dentures was just loose. I would find that out later. You know what I'm saying? And I was happy, cause like, damn, cause you know what I'm saying? I thought I broke something, But anyway. He was like, yeah, man, been waiting on you, been expecting. Carl called, told us you was coming, man. Good to see you. And he just asked me one question. He says, are you hungry? I said, what? He says, are you hungry? And all of a sudden, man, I just kind of broke. I cracked. I started to weep on the doorstep of this sober living in broad daylight against everything my father told me a man was and wasn't supposed to do. Because I couldn't go on living another day, taking another step, living the way I was living. Today, I know I was surrendered in that moment. And all he asked me was, I'm hungry. And I started weeping so bad that I went down on one knee. Tough guy stuff was gone. The tough guy routine was out the window. And I was just tired, man. I was tired. I really was tired when I got here, And it was all burnt down to the ground. And you know what you people told me is, this is the only place you could come where the worse off you are when you get here, the better your chances of staying, And I got down on that knee, man, and the dude was like, it's okay, brother. We understand. He said, we understand. And another dude ran out the house to help me up. His name was Dirty Red, right? And Dirty Red had some ink on his neck to say we couldn't be friends. You know what I mean? But the first words out of his mouth was, brother, you safe. Had it been anything else, I might have made another run for it. And they brought me into this house. They put me in the back room, called the runway. And they went to go get me a burrito. As soon as they left, I got down on my knees and I asked this God, who I was clear had kicked me to the curb, if he give his boy one more chance at this thing called life, you know what I'm saying, I'd be forever grateful, man. And he had already been there. God had met me where I was at. So I knew that the only thing I hadn't done around here was the 12 steps, and I got busy with that sponsor doing those 12 steps. The price I paid to get to Alcoholics Anonymous is different than the price I had to pay to stay. And once I've done those 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I felt like I was part of, you know what I mean? And I remember getting all my amends done, getting my amends list together, and I got back to the sober living that about 3 months later. And the guys was asking me, what was I going to do first? Now, when I landed on that doorstep of that sober living, December 2nd, 1999, I need to tell you that it had been 11 years before I laid eyes on my own mother. I had been gone that long. 11 years since I seen my baby sister, and I was okay with that because we were at odds. It would be 16 years before I see my oldest son again. I owed everybody from the IRS, EDD, State Department, Pookie, Dulo, you name it, I owed them. My life was completely burned down to the ground. And I didn't think I'd ever have a decent life ever again. I didn't know what it was going to look like. But all I knew is I didn't want any more of what I had. And I came home and told them about I got this amend list together and that I wanted to do my mom first. I had a long list, but I hadn't seen her in 11 years. But I didn't have any money to fly back east. 3 days later, there was a plane ticket on the bed of my sober living. The guys in my sober living that brought me a ticket from LAX to Bradley International. That Friday, I got to fly out to see my mom, who I hadn't seen in 11 years. And when I snuck up on that lady and knocked on her door that night, she opened that door, because my mom is short, right? She just screamed. And she grabbed my face, and she started to cry. And she was trying to talk, but she couldn't get no words out. When she was able to speak, what she said was her only prayer for the last 11 years is that she gets to see her baby boy one more time before she died. And there I stood because of rooms like this, people like you, and that process outlined in that book, man. And my mother wrapped her arms around my waist. I thought she was never going to let me go. You know, and obviously I was crying too. Because, you know, she had got a little grayer. And she wasn't living in her home anymore. She was in what you call a independent living, which is about that short of an assisted living. You know, and the 11 years that I've been missing was rough on her. Oh, thank you, honey. Thank you. And those 11 years have been kind of rough on her. And so I told her the kind of mission that I was on. I said, Ma, I'm here to make an amends. And I'm here to try to make you as whole as I possibly can. And I need to do this so I can stay sober. And I was like, but Ma, if you wouldn't mind, I'd appreciate it if you sit down so I can tell you. You know what I mean? She was like, boy, your mom can hear you. Keep talking. So what my mother was doing was she was making her baby boy his favorite meal. Some homemade salmon croquettes, grits, and she was scrambling up some eggs. You know? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You know, and I said, well, and I told her everything that I came there to do. I had instructions from my sponsor. And then I asked her the first $1 million question was, have I left anything out, Ma, that you want to tell me about? She stopped moving then. She sat down across the table, and she told me about all them nights she cried because she knew her baby boy was in trouble, and she couldn't help me. She talked about all them letters that she was sent on my birthday that got sent back. See, I was under the impression, out of sight, out of mind. You know what I mean? I have no idea the pain that I caused that lady, you know what I mean, by the way I was living. And it wasn't that I was doing it on purpose. I just had no other choice. You know, when alcohol calls, I came. You know, lack of power was my dilemma. You know, and then I asked her the last $1 million question. I said, well, Ma, what can I do on side of what I said I was going to do that's going to make you whole as I can at this moment? Boy, I tell you, God got a funny way of doing some stuff. Now, mind you, when I was doing my amends list with my sponsor, right, I didn't even put my baby sister on there, and he noticed it. He said, Jerry, where's your baby sister? I said, well, you know, I ain't really ready to talk to her yet. You know what I'm saying? He was like, that's okay. Tell you what we're going to do. We're going to give you a special column. He lied. You know what I mean? It's in the book. It's called the Never Never column, right? He made me put her name in the Never Never column, you know. And when I asked my mom that question, you know what I mean? She said, well, baby, you know when I die, all you're going to have left is your baby sister. I said, ooh, okay, here we go. She said, if you make it right with her, your mother will be okay. And I was like, damn. And I didn't say it out loud, but in my head, I was like, that's not what I came here for, you know. But then I hear my sponsor, too. He said, short of, as long as your mother don't ask you to murder somebody, your answer is going to be yes, Ma. You know what I mean? And yes, Ma came out of my mouth. See, I had villainized my sister all these years. I had blamed her for a lot of my plight because literally, you know, what I didn't mention is I ran off the East Coast. You know what I'm saying? And it was by her hand and her henchmen. So, you know, I was okay if I never ever talked to her again. You know what I mean? But, you know, when she said if I made it right with my baby sister, she'll be whole. And I had to listen to my sponsor. And I said, okay, well, I'm thinking I said okay because I'm trying to be slick. I'm thinking I ain't going to be able to see my sister, right? Because I'm only there for a hot minute. She called my sister right away. And I'm sitting on the couch, I'm rocking now because my whole thing changed, right? Because, I didn't go there to make amends to my baby sister. I really didn't want to see her, you know. And, man, I got to tell you, when she knocked on that door, my mother made me answer the door. From the couch to the door, all the hate, all the animosity, all the criticism, everything I had for my baby sister went out the window. When I opened the door, what stood on the other side of that door was my baby sister. And I realized that I hadn't left her out there unprotected. And had I been there, it might have went down a little different. And I didn't even talk to her, man. I just looked at her, man, and I went and hugged her like my mother hugged me a few hours earlier. You know what I mean? And only God could write a script like that. And from that very first amends to this day, I haven't found it necessary to take a hit, drink, or fix. And my life is beyond my wildest dreams. You know what I mean? God keeps showing up in my life so big that, you know, I can loan him out from time to time to those who don't believe and those who God's not getting it done for them. You know, I mean, I tell you, this life that I live, about 8 years ago, my ex-wife found out they was living in a hotel, right? I'm sober, doing my own thing. I'm living in this townhouse all by myself. You know what I'm saying? Just living the life. And her and my son and her husband living in a hotel. So I tell my son, right, the 5-year-old that's on the floor of the car, he's a grown man now. I tell him, hey, why don't you come stay with me so they can save up some money? They ain't got to rent you a room because they've been in the hotel for a few months. He says to me, okay, Dad, that's good. I'm going to tell Mom. I get a call from his mom about an hour later. She said, hey, Jerry, thanks for letting us come live with you. I'm like, that's not the message I gave him. But I'm listening to my sponsor in my head again, right? And I couldn't tell her no. So a week later, they move in. You know what I'm saying? They move in. And about 4 days after that, she's sitting there talking to her husband. And I'm still ain't happy with this move, right? I really ain't, but I'm doing God's thing. All of a sudden, her husband stops talking. He goes into this full stroke. She dials 911. Just so happened, I was living right across the street from St. John's Medical Center, which is the leading stroke center in Southern California. Now, they didn't even send an ambulance for him. They just wheeled him across the street. And they said 10 more minutes, that man would have been a vegetable. So I have to believe that that was divinely, you know, done by God, because other than that, you know what I'm saying, that man would have died wherever he was at, man. And I just, in that moments, I know that God is working in my life, and he's bigger than anything that I, you know what I'm saying, that I can imagine, you know, and my life just keep getting better and better. So I trust God, clean house, and help others, and I don't, you know what I'm saying, it just gets better and better and better. So I've been with my last wife for the last 7 years, and, you know, she's 45, and she decided, you know, she wants to have a baby. So I said, baby, you do realize how old I am, right? She said, yeah. So we went through the whole thing a couple of years ago, doing the IVF thing, right? So yeah, God worked. And she got pregnant. Took us 2 years, but she got pregnant. September 18th of last year, she was 7 months pregnant. She got sick. She came down with preeclampsia and HELLP syndrome. Her blood pressure was 188/90. I take her to the emergency room. The doctors coming in and out. They do blood work on her, and they's like, look, we're going to have to take the baby. I thought they was taking the baby to save the baby. They was taking the baby to save her. The baby was killing her. Her platelets was low, and the enzymes in the liver was high. Sometimes God sets me aside just to let me know who he is, you know, and yeah, they took an emergency surgery that night. And I'm standing in this room. Oh, I got to tell you what she said first. When the doctor said we got to go take the baby, she started to cry. And she grabbed my hand because she knew she was in danger. And she told me that if I had to make a choice, choose the baby. And I thought that was the most heroic thing I ever heard. What came out of my mouth was, baby, don't you worry about nothing. I got a God big enough to bring both of y'all home. I don't know if he would, but I knew that he could. And that's what you guys taught me around here, is I just keep putting one foot in front of the other. You know, and sure enough, they went into surgery, man, and by 11 o'clock, by 11:30, they come wheeling by me with this big old incubator. And my 2-pound, 1.4-ounce baby was in it. And she had all kind of tubes. She had all kind of tubes coming out of it, and she didn't look like she was going to make it. So I couldn't spend a little time right there, because they wouldn't let me into the operating room, but I could see them working on my wife. It took them to 1 o'clock to sew her up because she wouldn't stop bleeding. But at 1:05, they wheeled her out of the operating room, and she was alive as well. God did bring both of them home, and I got to spend 6 weeks with that baby in the NICU and 2 weeks with my wife in the hospital. And I got to tell you something. When that moment came, when it's just me and God, it's just me and God. See, I was agnostic when I got here to Alcoholics Anonymous. I thought God had kicked me to the curb. But, when I actually started putting pen to paper, when I look at how he covered my life, how he had his hands on my life, that 5-year-old that was in the front seat that didn't get hit, me driving did not get hit, he had his hand on our life. You guys introduced me to that thing called footprints in the sand. And I knew in those moments that's when he was carrying me. Because, see, all I wanted to be was a good dad when I got here. And I just wanted to stop hurting the ones that I love. You know what I mean? I was just willing to take the big one to take me out. You know what I mean? So they could get a better dad. God had a different plan. He said, if you get into that process, you do this work, I'm going to give them the dad they deserve, but I'm going to work you from the inside out because this is an inside job. Because if you don't go within, you go without. And, I had no idea that if you just fixing up the outside never worked. You know what I mean? I had to go inside here. You know what I'm saying? And understand that I wasn't a bad person. I was just a sick person trying to get better. So I'm holding this little baby. She's... I was telling Jeremy that I cry about once a week, right? Because this is not my first kid. This is my 6th child. And I'm realizing how much of the other kids' life I miss because of drinking and using. I'm just holding the baby, right? And all of a sudden it flashes back when her big brother was that age. He was on the other side of the door crying while I was in the bathroom putting his milk money in my veins. And I said to myself, you ain't got to worry about that. One day at a time, you're going to have a dad that I always wanted to be with them. You know what I mean? And then it's a little bit of regret. It's a little bit of remorse. You know what I mean? Because I missed so much being a dad. I didn't even know what it was. I had no idea. Now getting up at 2 in the morning because the baby hungry. You know what I mean? You got to go to work early the next day. You know what I mean? I had no idea what none of that stuff meant, man. But Alcoholics Anonymous introduced me to a power that allows me the mercy and the grace to get it right one more time. I love my life today. I really do. I miss that little one. You know what I mean? She came home at just a little over 4 pounds. Right now, she's 16 pounds and she's raising a whole lot of hell. You know what I mean? Yes, she is. And I'm so happy that I'm so happy she can cry. Because, that NICU thing was kind of an experience, right? And you got to ask yourself, what does any of this got to do to being about being sober? Well, it's got everything about being sober. You know what I'm saying? Because without sobriety, without a God of my understanding, none of this would be possible. You know what I mean? So I put God first, the program second, and all you come after that, man, and I live a life beyond my wildest dreams. I read a story in the grapevine early on. It said, talks about this dude making all these bad decisions. He falls down in this really dark hole, but he can see life. He can see everybody living life. Like I used to be on Sunday after I done spent up all the money, right? Because that's my M.O. I come up missing on payday, and I come back home when I ain't got no more money. No groceries, no rent money. And he sees life going by, and he's calling out for help, and nobody can help him. Good Samaritan walk by, he's scared to jump down in that hole. It's dark. It's scary down there. You know what I mean? The priest come by, he drops a prayer down on a piece of paper. Cop come by, he says, you know what? You in some kind of violation. I'm going to give you a ticket when I come back, Then somebody from AA come by, and they jump down the hole with him. And he gets real indignant. He's like, ah, dang. Now we both down here. And the guy from AA said, yeah, I know. But I've been here before, and I know the way out. And that's what Alcoholics Anonymous means to me. Because, see, we take those people that are not welcome nowhere else. And nobody can reach another alcoholic like another alcoholic because we understand. I tried the church way, man. It wasn't that God wasn't in them church. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't. But the missing piece was I'm suffering from a spiritual disease that only a spiritual remedy can conquer. You know what I'm saying? I went on all the altar calls, man. I was a Holy Ghost filled, water baptized, tongue talking. Believe I lay hands on the sick and they will recover. I will become a new man every Sunday. And as soon as I got a paycheck, me and that new man was in the motel, peeking out the curtain, talking about, shh, everybody be quiet. And I didn't know. I'm like, dang, it could never last, right? It could never last. But now that I know what's wrong with me, you know what I mean? There's a solution to my problem. And my solution is being right here with you guys on a regular basis. You guys told me that I couldn't think my way into better living. I have to live my way into better thinking. It's a program of action, spiritual in nature. I'm only going to get out of AA what I put into AA. You know what I mean? So if, like I said, if you be new, welcome. Come all the way in. Please sit all the way down. We love you and we understand. You know what I'm saying? We know you done screwed over everybody you love. We know that you probably done burned down every bridge you ever crossed. And that's okay. But you're welcome here. You know what I mean? When I look out in this audience, all miracles. If you made it here, I don't usually talk to people like that, but if you sitting in here tonight, I would venture to say, God got a bigger purpose for your life because of the ripple effect of the people you're going to touch once you get this thing called sobriety. It's just about one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic, man. It's just about, I didn't understand that, I need to put into life more than I take away from life. I've been taking my whole life. You know what I'm saying? Even when I do something for you, there's a motive. You know what I'm saying? There's got to be something in it for Jerry, man. I'm going to keep coming back because I love the way I'm living today. I'll keep coming back because I love my family. I'm keep coming back because I love all you people. My name's Jerry Miller, and that's pretty much all I got to say. Thank you for allowing me to share tonight.